I don't care if you can't sing or you think you're tone deaf, you will learn Mandarin Chinese tones. Everyone does eventually. And if you want to learn Mandarin Chinese tones, you've come to the right place. Let's begin. These lessons will cover each of the Mandarin tones in turn, along with all the possible two-tone combinations, since such a large segment of Chinese vocabulary is made up of two-syllable words. There are some quizzes and self-tests, but no need to take the results too seriously. You'll improve just by going through the course. For each of the tone combinations, there's an example of when that same combination might occur in English. For example, a first and fourth tone might sound like a movie director saying, "and cut." These are meant as mnemonics for identifying and voicing the combinations, and they are very useful for some students, but completely useless for others. Once the app version of this course is ready, you'll be able to turn them off and on, but for now, just ignore them if you don't think they're helping you. Before we get to the individual tones, let's do a general introduction and look at 4 tips for learning and internalizing Mandarin Chinese tones. If at any time you want to skip ahead, there's a table of contents in the description of this video. And of course, take these lessons at whatever pace suits you best, whether all in one go or spread out over days. Strictly speaking, Mandarin Chinese has 5 tones. The 4 numbered tones, plus the so-called neutral tone, which is sometimes described as having no tone at all. At the same time, the 3rd tone has a few different ways to voice it, and also has what's called tone sandhi, meaning it can sometimes change tones. This is the chart usually used to teach the Mandarin tones, showing the pitch for each of them. This is how Chinese speakers think of the tones, and it's what you should shoot for when voicing them. But know that it's not 100% exact. Studies have shown that native speakers voice the tones on average more like this. So while the chart is very useful, these lessons will feature it too, you can also think of the tones along more general lines. The first tone is high, the 3rd tone is low and dips a little, the 2nd tone rises, and the 4th tone drops. The big mental leap for those who don't speak a tonal language is thinking of a word's tone as fundamental to its pronunciation. There was once an English teacher who had a new class of young Chinese-speaking students and wanted to see how much English they already knew. He held up a blue card and asked the class, "Green?" He wanted a yes-no answer, but instead the class responded, "Green?" They thought he meant the name of the color was green in a rising tone. To the teacher, a rising tone signaled a question, but to the students, that was just how some words are pronounced. Now here are some tips you can use both during this course and further on as your Mandarin skills increase. Tip 1. Imitate, almost like a comedian. In English, if someone says, "Wow, that's a really pretty dress," and then someone else says, "Wow, that's a really pretty dress," in the exact same tones, they are making fun of that person. Because of this, some English speakers might feel a little shy when trying to copy a Chinese speaker's tones, worried about going too far and imitating their speech. But in fact, a good way to match the tones you hear in this course is to mimic the native speaker's pronunciation like a comedian would, almost as if you're making fun of them. The truth is that for students who are new to tonal languages, voicing the tones can feel exaggerated and kind of phony. But try exaggerating those tones just a little and ask a native Mandarin speaker how it sounds. You may find that what you think is exaggerated, they see as good pronunciation. Tip 2. Keep repeating. Just as there is muscle memory for riding a bike, so too, in a way, there is muscle memory for saying Chinese words with the correct tones. So verbal repetition is key here, even more than what you would do learning a non-tonal language like Spanish or French. With any Chinese vocabulary you study, be sure to repeat the words again and again whenever they come up. Say them a bunch of times in a row as you first learn them. In other words, you want to keep saying
语言
to yourself, yu yan, until eventually you feel there's just no other way to say it than yu yan. Tip 3. Treat questions like statements. Some beginning students struggle with tones when asking questions because it's tempting to use the same rising intonation as in English. So to ask, is this your book, instead of saying,
这是你的书吗
the student might say, 这是你的书吗? If you find yourself doing something like this, try to remind yourself to speak all questions as if they were statements, at least to start out with. This can stop that rising voice from taking over your tones. And if you've already learned how to form questions with the question particle ma, then you could think of it as the Chinese equivalent of yes. So,
这是你的书
this is your book,
吗
yes. Tip 4. In case of emergency, go toneless. There are certain cases where tone is vital. For example, it's the difference between buy and sell, or between train and truck. But it's not always essential. For example, Chinese speakers can understand song lyrics even though they have no tones. The words are all sung in a steady pitch that follows the music. And so, if you're in a situation where you have to communicate in Mandarin and the person you're speaking with doesn't understand you after a couple of attempts, you can try speaking in a monotone instead. To avoid any misunderstandings as much as possible, make sure to keep all the tones flat and only use this method in emergencies. Otherwise, you'll start developing bad habits with your tones that could take a long time to correct. Now let's look at each of the 4 numbered tones one at a time. The first tone is pronounced as a flat, relatively high tone. It's represented by a flat bar in the pinyin system, or sometimes with the number 1. It's the most basic of the tones, and it's probably the easiest to pronounce and to identify. It's just a steady note, just a little higher than you might normally speak, somewhere in the upper third of your comfortable speaking range. Try voicing it. You can think of it as singing the syllable, but make sure to keep the tone steady. This is important to do even if you're asking a question or expressing surprise or other cases where English would use a different tone. For each of the tones and tone combinations covered in this course, you'll have an example, which we'll call the model word. This is meant to help your speaking. If you're able to memorize or internalize the pronunciation of it, you can apply it to all the other words you learn with the same tone. Though just like with other features in this course, you don't have to use the model words if you don't want. For the first tone, the model word is
说
meaning to speak or to say. You'll have a chance to practice repeating it in the next unit of this lesson, but for now just listen passively to different native Mandarin speakers saying this word.
说
说
说
说
说
说
说
Now listen to these other first tone words. You'll have a chance to practice saying them in a moment, but first just listen.
天
他
天
是都
发
他
天
三
三
Here are some 2-syllable tone combinations with first tones in them.
公司非常
方法
发现熊猫
火车
目标
And here's a sentence using only the first tone.
他说他应该出发。
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 It means he said he should get going. Now it's your turn. Try copying the first tones as you repeat the words in the next unit.
说说
说
说
说
说
说三
天
发
都
他
天师
天
三
他呱呱呱呱呱
拱弓拱弓弓
动东动东东
帮棒帮棒帮
公拱公拱公
腾腾腾腾腾
发法发法发
雾雾雾乌乌乌
乌乌乌
无无无
乌乌乌五五五
雾雾雾。
Although the second tone would come next numerically, this course is presenting the tones in the order which they're probably easiest to learn. So now let's look at the fourth tone. The fourth tone is pronounced as a falling tone, roughly from the upper third of your speaking range to the lower third.
Ah.
It's represented by a downward sloping bar in the pinyin system, or sometimes with the number 4. Just under a third of all Chinese characters are pronounced with the fourth tone, making it the most common of the four main tones. One way to think of the fourth tone is as someone starting a race with the word go.
Ah.
or else angrily refusing a request with no.
啊
When speaking with the fourth tone, remember to start high in your speaking range so that it doesn't sound like an unstressed third tone, which we'll learn later. Try repeating it now.
啊啊啊啊啊
The model word for the fourth tone is
看
meaning look or see. Listen to these speakers saying
看
again, no need to repeat yet.
看
看
看
看
看
看
看
Now listen to these other fourth tone words.
要
是
就日
认
在大
就对
对
Here are some tone combinations with the fourth tone in them.
世界
必须
大学地理
知道
矛盾
努力
And here's a sentence using only fourth tone.
大笨蛋在看电视
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 It means the big idiot is watching TV. And now, time to practice the fourth tone.
看
看
看
看看
看
看
看
就
认
在大
要
对
就
对
是
日书树书树树好好好好好
挂刮挂刮挂
棒帮棒帮棒
鹅鹅鹅鹅鹅
碗碗碗碗碗
到岛到岛到
意意意
咦咦咦
意意意
以以以
一一一一 意意意
The second tone is pronounced as a rising tone, roughly from the middle third of your speaking range to the upper third, so it's not as dramatic as the fourth tone.
啊啊
It's represented by an upward sloping bar or number 2. A lot of textbooks describe it as sounding like a one-syllable question, as in Jane or what? And it's fine to think of it this way if you find it helpful at the beginning, but you'll want to move beyond that association once you feel good pronouncing a few second tone words, since you don't want to start imagining someone's asking a question just because that word happens to have a rising tone. If you have trouble pronouncing this tone, you can start at the bottom of your vocal range instead of at the middle, so that the rise in the tone is easier to voice. Ah. Just make sure it's a straight rise, not a sort of uneven one like ah, which Chinese speakers might think sounds like a third tone. Try repeating the tone now.
啊啊啊啊啊
When starting out with the tones, some students occasionally confuse the second and fourth tones. This is because both of these tones can be used in English to express emphasis. Just to keep them straight right from the beginning, listen again to the difference.
ah, 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 ah.
The model word for the second tone is
来
meaning to come, or in some contexts, to do. Listen to its pronunciation.
来
来
来
来
来
来
Now listen to these other second tone words.
从
人
和
年人
能
蓝
年
龙
龙
Here are some tone combinations with second tone in them.
完全
国家
如果
活动
欢迎
选择
大学
And here's a sentence using only second tone.
成龙能学习德文，
成龙能学习德文。
成龙能学习德文。
It means Jackie Chan is able to study German. Now here's some practice repeating and imitating the second tone.
来
来来
来
来
来
来
来
人
蓝
龙
能
年
人
从
和
驴
龙
碗弯碗弯碗
雨鱼雨鱼鱼
时诗时诗时
人忍人忍人
毛猫毛猫毛
网王网王王
发罚发罚罚
碰碰碰
蓬蓬蓬
砰砰砰
疼疼疼
砰砰砰
捧捧捧
碰碰碰
The third tone can be a little tricky. The problem is that it really has three different pronunciations depending on the context. The main pronunciation is a dipping tone that starts in the lower third of your vocal register, moves deeper, and then rises to a medium-high level like this.
ah.
It's a little like a rolling, slightly uncertain yes. Note that it's also the lowest of the Mandarin Chinese tones, so except for the rising part, keep it near the bottom of your comfortable speaking range. The third tone is written as a little V over the main vowel, or with the number 3. Try repeating this pronunciation now.
Ah.
But there's also another way to pronounce the third tone, which is a sort of shorter form that cuts off the rise in pitch at the end. We'll refer to it here as the clipped third tone, and it's sort of the equivalent of an unstressed syllable in English. Here's how it sounds. It's used interchangeably with the full emphasized third tone, and most of the time you can use either one. For example, a Chinese speaker might emphasize the word
好
meaning good by using the full third tone, in which case it might mean something like that sounds good to me.
好
But if they just want to say uh-huh or okay, they might use the clipped third tone as in
好好
again, listen to the difference. This clipped version is actually the most common way you'll hear the third tone pronounced. It's really just too much work to do an elaborate full third tone each time, and you'll only hear it that way if the third tone syllable is being emphasized for some reason, or sometimes if it's in combination with the neutral fifth tone, which we'll learn about later. In terms of your own speaking, though, start off by using the full version for all standalone one-character words in the third tone, and remember to keep the tone low until the end. This will make your Chinese easier to understand. One final thing to notice with the two forms is that the full third tone is usually pronounced longer than the other tones. while the clipped third tone is shorter than the others. Besides the two versions of the third tone, there are also times when the third tone changes to a second tone. Specifically, whenever two third tones appear next to each other, the first one will essentially be pronounced as a second tone, even though it'll still be written as a third tone. For example, when the third tone word
你
meaning you combines with the third tone word
好
meaning good to get the Chinese expression for hello,
你
becomes second tone. Listen.
你好你好你好
Anyway, this transformation happens only when two third tones come one right after the other and never any time else. We'll include a little practice with the clipped third tone in this lesson, but since you'll get to know it much better when we go over tone combinations, we'll focus mostly on the full emphasized version. Before going on to the model word, let's do a quick repetition contrasting the third tone with other tones. First, listen to the difference between the third tone and the second tone.
啊啊啊啊啊啊
And now try to imitate it yourself.
啊啊啊啊
Next, listen to the contrast between the clipped third tone and the fourth tone.
啊啊啊啊啊啊
And now try to imitate it.
啊啊啊啊
The model word for the third tone is
好
which we've already gone over, but here it is again in both the full and clipped forms.
好，
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 好
好，
好
好，
好
Now listen to some other third tone words standing alone with full emphasis.
果
也，
你
指，
耳，
美，
有
女
And here are some clipped third tones.
米，
指
国，
有，
Here are some tone combinations with third tone in them.
北京，
选择
努力，
英语
如果
上海，
Unlike with the other tones, there's no real reason to have a sentence of all third tone syllables, since many of them would change to second tones in that situation. Instead, let's go straight to practicing imitating the tones.
好
好，
好，
好
好，
好
好，
好
有
也，
指，
你
耳，
果
我
女，
指
米，
美美美美美
网，王，网，王。 网，
慢满慢满满
伞三伞三伞
大打大打打
儿儿儿儿儿
宝包宝包宝
马马马
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 骂骂骂
马马马
妈妈妈
马马马
Now let's practice voicing all the tones, and then you can try the self-test.
乌有棒
法
号
碗
鹅
书
忍
毛
诗
碰东
汤鱼王
宝
打挂
义诗诗诗龙龙龙和和和对对对果果果
从从从发发发我我在 在，也，也，也，
指，指，指，他，他，他，是，是，是，认，认，认，年，年，年，
耳，耳，耳，要，要，要，三，三，三，能，能，能，天，天，天。
And now let's look at the two-syllable tone combinations. Let's look at the tone combinations ending in the fourth tone. This 1-4 combination sounds like this.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊
An English equivalent might be a movie director saying, and cut,
啊啊
and cut.
啊啊
The model word is
吃饭
meaning to eat. First, just listen to it.
吃饭
吃饭，
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 Now try copying it.
吃饭吃饭吃饭吃饭
Now listen to these other 1-4 words. You'll try voicing them later.
商店，
商店，
发现
发现，
知道，
知道方式
方式。
Here's the 2-4 combination.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊
It sounds a little like a martial arts master chopping a wood board while yelling, Hi-ya,
啊啊
Hi-ya.
啊啊
The model word is
服务
meaning service.
服务
服务，
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 Now try copying it.
服务服务服务服务
Here are other 2-4 combos.
活动，
活动，
活动
学校，
学校
环境，
环境，
环境。
The 3-4 combination sounds like this.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊
It sounds similar to the tones that might be used to shout, You fool,
啊啊
you fool.
啊啊
The model word is
讨厌，
meaning disgusting or to loathe.
讨厌，
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 Now try voicing it.
讨厌，讨厌，讨厌，讨厌。
Here are more 3-4 combinations.
以后，
以后，
可是，
可是，努力，
努力，
网路，
网路，
And finally, the 4-4 combination is voiced like this.
啊啊，啊啊，啊啊，啊啊。
In this case, you could probably just think of them as one fourth tone after another, though it could also be the tone used in English for hey you,
啊啊，
hey you.
啊啊，
The model word is
重要，
meaning important.
重要，
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 Try imitating it.
重要，重要，重要，重要。
Here are some other 4-4 combos.
世界，
世界，
这样，
这样，
看到，
看到，
社会，
社会，
And now let's do some more speaking practice.
吃饭，吃饭，吃饭，服务，服务，服务，讨厌，讨厌，讨厌，重要，重要，重要，知道，方式，发现，时事，活动，环境，网路，可是，以后，社会，这样，世界，商店，学校，努力，看到，
卧室，我是，卧室，我是，卧室。方便，方便，方便，方便，方便。经脉，静脉，经脉，静脉，静脉。美式，没事，美式，没事，没事。世代，时代，世代，时代，世代。 白布，百步，白布，百步，百步。激动，激动，激动。可是，可是，可是。卖菜，卖菜，卖菜。笑话，笑话，笑话。食物，食物，食物。搅拌，搅拌，搅拌。
Now we'll do some tone combinations ending in the first tone. The 1-1 combination sounds like this.
啊啊，啊啊，啊啊，啊啊，啊啊。
In English, we would associate this tone pattern with a space alien or a sci-fi robot. Maybe something like robot,
啊啊，
robot.
啊啊。
The model word for this combination is
应该，
meaning should or must. First, just listen to it.
应该，
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 Now try to mimic it.
应该，应该，应该，应该。
You'll get more practice voicing this combination later, but have one more listen to some 1-1 combos.
公司，
公司，
中心，
中心，
西方，
西方，
空间，
空间。
Now, here's the 2-1 combination.
啊啊，啊啊，啊啊，啊啊。
This isn't a combo that shows up a lot in English, but it is used for military drill. Think of tension,
啊啊，
tension.
啊啊。
The model word for this combination is
时间，
meaning time. Here's how it sounds.
时间，
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 Now copy it.
时间，时间，时间，时间。
Listen to a few more samples of the 2-1 combo.
国家，
国家，
提高，
提高，
其他，
其他，
原因，
原因，
The 3-1 combination sounds like this.
啊啊，啊啊，啊啊，啊啊。
This might resemble a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat and saying, ta-da,
啊啊，
ta-da.
啊啊。
The model word for this combination is
老师，
meaning teacher.
老师，
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 Now say it yourself.
老师，老师，老师，老师。
Here are some more 3-1 combinations.
许多，
许多，
已经，
已经，
指出，
指出，
北京，
北京，
Note that the 3-1 and 2-1 combinations sound similar, except that with the 3-1 combo that we just learned, the first syllable stays low. Listen to the difference.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊。
The 4-1 combination is voiced like this.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊。
This is maybe a little like the tones used with the expression say what,
啊啊
say what.
啊啊。
The model word for this combination is
大家
meaning everybody.
大家，
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 Now imitate it.
大家大家大家大家。
Here are a few more examples of the 4-1 tone combo.
必须，
必须，
地方，
地方，
目标，
目标，
健康
健康。
If you have trouble telling the 4-1 and 3-1 combos apart, note that the 4-1 sounds much more emphatic.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊。
应该，应该，应该，时间，时间，时间，老师，老师，老师，大家，大家，大家，公司，西方，中心，国家，提高，其他，许多，已经，指出，必须，地方，目标，空间，原因，北京，健康。
火车货车火车货车货车。五方无方五方无方五方。摇他要他摇他要他要他。秋天秋天秋天秋天秋天。世间时间世间时间 时间，白布，摆布，白布，摆布，摆布。花商，花商，花商。时关，时关，时关。买家，买家，买家。交办，交办，交办。方便，方便，方便。卧室，卧室，卧室。
Let's look at combos ending in the third tone, starting with the 1-3 combination. It sounds like this.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊。
For the purpose of remembering this combo, you could think of an old-time actress saying darling. Darling,
啊啊
darling.
啊啊。
The model word for the 1-3 combo is
开始，
which means start or to begin. Listen to these native speakers say it.
开始，
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 Now it's your turn.
开始，开始，开始，开始。
Now pause to listen to these words with a 1-3 pattern.
方法，
方法，
工厂，
工厂，
发表，
发表，
家里，
家里。
The 2-3 combination sounds like this.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊。
And because of the tone Sandy rule, the 3-3 combo sounds the same.
啊啊
This is the tone combo an English speaker might use to correct the pronunciation of a name, as in, it's not Rob Smith, it's Bob Smith.
啊啊
Bob Smith.
啊啊。
This combination comes up a lot in Chinese, including with the model phrase
没有，
meaning there isn't or there aren't or has not. It sounds like this.
没有，
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 Try saying it.
没有，没有，没有，没有。
Here are some 2-3 and 3-3 words that you'll practice saying later.
如果，
如果，
可以，
可以，
无法，
无法，
了解，
了解。
Finally, there's the 4-3 combination, which is voiced like this.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊。
It might sound like an English speaker saying bad dog.
啊啊
Bad dog.
啊啊。
The model word for this is
电脑，
meaning computer.
电脑，
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 Try voicing it.
电脑， 电脑，电脑，电脑。
And listen to these other 4-3 words.
系统、
系统、
政府、
政府、
市场、
市场、
上海、
上海、
开始、开始、开始，没有、没有、没有，电脑、电脑、电脑。方法、工厂、发表、如果、可以、无法、系统、政府、市场、家里、了解、上海。
该写，改写，该写，改写，改写。动土，东土，动土，东土，东土。台语，泰语，台语，泰语，台语。香港，上港，香港，上港，上港。秋天，秋天，秋天，秋天，秋天。美式，没事，美式，没事，美式。连舞，连舞，连舞。药酒，药酒，药酒。斑马，斑马，斑马。华商，华商，华商。火车，火车，火车。科室，科室，科室。
And now the final group of major tone combinations, those ending with the second tone. Let's start with the 1-2 combo, which sounds like this.
啊啊啊啊啊 啊啊啊啊啊啊
A situation where this combination might come up in English could be if someone was prompting you to complete a phrase. Imagine, for example, a game show host asking, tick tack,
啊啊
tick tack.
啊啊，
A useful model word for this combo is
当然
which means of course. Listen for a moment.
当然，
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 Now try saying it. Remember to say the first syllable as a high, clear tone, and then start low with the rising second syllable.
当然当然当然当然
Meanwhile, listen to these other 1-2 combinations.
生活
生活，
非常，
非常，
功能
功能，
公园，
公园，
The 2-2 combo sounds like this.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊
It's a similar intonation as an English speaker looking for someone. Bob, Jane.
啊啊
This might be useful for reference, but remember that these combinations aren't questions, even though they might sound like that at first. Ultimately, you'll want to think of this combo more as just a pair of second tones.
啊啊，
The model word is
学习
meaning to study.
学习，
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 Try voicing it.
学习学习学习学习
Here's some more examples of 2-2 combinations.
如何，
如何，
完全，
完全，
茶壶
茶壶，
别人，
别人，
Here's the 3-2 combo.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊
It might sound a little like someone getting to the exciting part of a story, saying, and then,
啊啊
and then.
啊啊
In English, both this 3-2 combo and the 1-2 combo convey a sense of excitement. The main difference is that the first syllable of the 1-2 is high, while for the 3-2, it's low. Listen to the difference.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊
The model word for the 3-2 combo is
以前
meaning before. Listen to how it sounds.
以前，
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 Now try it for yourself.
以前以前以前以前
Here's some other 3-2 words.
解决，
解决，
选择
选择，
检查，
检查
老年，
老年，
And last, there's the 4-2 combination.
啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊啊
This tone combination seems pretty rare in most dialects of English, so there's not really an equivalent. Instead, it's maybe best just to focus on its characteristic down-up sound.
啊啊
Down, up.
啊啊
The model word for the 4-2 combo is
问题
which means question or problem.
问题，
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 Try voicing it.
问题问题问题 问题
And here are some other 4-2 words.
大学
大学
认为
认为
造成
造成
不能
不能
当然当然当然学习学习学习以前以前以前问题问题问题生活非常功能如何别人茶壶解决选择检查大学认为不能公园完全老年造成
江河讲和江河讲和江河商学上学商学上学商学梅园美元梅园美元美元集成继承集成继承继承泰语台语泰语台语泰语五方无方五方无方五方星云星云星云戒严戒严戒严神情神情神情食物食物食物东土东土东土士官士官士官
And now let's look at the neutral tone, sometimes called the fifth tone. Believe it or not, there's some disagreement over how the fifth tone is pronounced. Some say it has no tone or is just flat, and some say it drops a little. Some say it's higher when following some tones and lower with others. Really, it doesn't matter so much, just so long as you make it really short. You should be fine thinking of it as a clipped sound, made somewhere around the middle of your speaking range. It can be written as a syllable with no accent, or with a dot, or with the number 5. It only appears after another character that has one of the 4 main tones. Some of the most common examples of fifth tones are for grammatical particles. To get a sense of the sound, take
孙子
pronounced as a 1-3 combination.
孙子
Said this way, it's the name of the Chinese philosopher famous for writing The Art of War. But now compare it to
孙子
pronounced as a first tone and a neutral fifth tone, meaning grandson.
孙子孙子孙子孙子孙子
The key to voicing combinations ending in the fifth tone is to keep it very short. It's pretty basic, so there's no quiz for this lesson, but have a listen to the 4 possible combos with the fifth tone, and then you'll get some practice saying them yourself.
真的，
真的，
他们
他们
孩子，
孩子
完了，
完了，
买卖，
买卖，
满了，
满了
谢谢，
谢谢，
告诉
告诉，
他们真的开了，孩子除了朋友，我们满了，筷子告诉看了，谢谢，叉子完了，好的，意思。
Before going on to the final voicing practice and test, let's look at pronouncing more than 2 tones together, as well as some special tone sandhi rules for 2 common words, yi and bu. If you have a 3-syllable Chinese word, the easiest way is to break it into a single-syllable tone and a 2-tone combination. For example,
旅行社
travel agency could be divided into
旅行
travel and
社
meaning a group or community.
旅行社
Or for
钱钟书
the name of a famous Chinese author, you could divide it into his surname
钱
and his first name.
钟书钱钟书
Know that the tone sandhi rules for 2 third tones that appear next to each other will still apply, so long as they're part of the same word or phrase. So in the name
李小龙
the Chinese name of the martial arts actor Bruce Lee, it would be natural to think of it as
李
his family name and
小龙
or Little Dragon, which was his given name. But the third tone in Li will still change to a second tone as part of the tone sandhi rule.
李小龙李小龙
Just for some practice, try voicing the following 3-tone combinations.
单行道单行道嘉年华嘉年华雇佣兵 雇佣兵，丹麦语，丹麦语，朋友们，朋友们，三明治，三明治，智囊团，智囊团，大舅子，大舅子，宋美龄，宋美龄，刘德华，刘德华，周恩来，周恩来。
The other thing to know before finishing this course is the special tone sandhi rules for two extremely common Chinese words. The first is
不
the word for no or not. It takes the fourth tone,
不
except when it comes in front of another fourth tone. In that case, just like with two third tones, the bu becomes second tone. So for example,
不行，
and
不少，
but
不错，
and,
不过，
then there's the word
一
meaning one. It's pronounced as a first tone when it's by itself, for example in a telephone number or when counting.
一
But whenever it combines with another syllable, it follows the exact same rules as bu. Fourth tone, except when it comes in front of another fourth tone, in which case it switches to second tone. So here you'd have
一
by itself, and then
一张，
and,
一条，
and,
一起，
but,
一次，
and.
一半，
Try voicing the following.
不同，不好，不要，不用，一般，一头，一个，一块。
And with that, let's do one final review by practicing voicing the different two-tone combinations.
星云，台语，世代，神情，没事，可是，江河，花商，告诉，斑马。 他们动土，货车，激动，戒严，满了，美元，石棺，孩子，五方。
应该，当然，开始，吃饭，时间，学习，没有，服务，老师，以前。 讨厌，大家，问题，电脑，重要。
眼中，眼中，眼中，严重，严重，严重，大国，大国，大国，打过，打过，打过，
太晚，太晚，太晚，台湾，台湾，台湾，结眉，结眉，结眉，姐妹，姐妹，姐妹，
松鼠，松鼠，松鼠，松树，松树，松树，财税，财税，财税，财水，财水，财水，
史事，史事，史事，史诗，史诗，史诗，石狮，石狮，石狮，诗实，诗实，诗实，诗事，诗事，诗事，事实，事实，事实，史实，史实，史实，时事，时事，时事。